Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you tonight.
भारतीय सेना ने बहादुरी से पीएलए को हमारी टेरिटरी में अतिक्रमण करने से रोका और उन्हें उनकी पोस्ट पर वापस जाने के लिए मजबूर कर दिया, अध्यक्ष महोदय।
The Indian Army repelled an attempt by Chinese troops to transgress into Tawang in Arunachal Pradesh on the 9th of December, says Defence Minister Rajnath Singh in Parliament. Also adds no Indian soldier was killed or seriously injured. China accuses Indian troops of illegally crossing the LAC. Stock markets rebound led by bank stocks. The Sensex gains over 400 points, the Nifty gains over 100 points, but the rupee continues to weaken against the dollar, hitting its lowest closing level in 6 weeks. All eyes on the crucial Federal Reserve December policy meeting that begins today. Chaotic scenes continue at airports. Airlines issue advisories asking passengers on domestic flights to reach 3.5 hours ahead of departure. The parliamentary panel summons the CEO of the Delhi airport. The Aviation Ministry asks airlines to deploy sufficient staff at all check-in and baggage drop counters well in advance to ensure decongestion.
Globally, it'd be, number one. I mean, I think there's, it's the largest market outside of the U.S.
India's real estate market is the #1 priority for the Trump organization globally, says Donald Trump Jr. He's also confident of his father's second bid for the White House.
So I have asked that we stop talking about deadlines and we talk about the quality of the deal and not just the speed. So it's about the deal, not the day.
Britain's trade minister refuses to set a deadline for the trade deal as negotiations restart with the UK after Rishi Sunak took charge as Prime Minister. Promises to move the talks with pace. Also adds that student visas are not on the agenda. It's a milestone moment for the Make in India program in the defence space. Kalyani Rafael Defence Systems hands over the 100th midsection of the Barak 8 medium-range surface-to-air missile to the Indian Armed Forces.
The reality is Uber's unlocked about 445 billion Indian rupees in economic value.
Uber's chief legal officer claims they are the largest employer in India after the army and the railway, says that they've unlocked 44,600 crore rupees of economic potential, adding that they're open to providing social security benefits to drivers, but cautioning that that should not be hard-coded into law. Tata Sons announces the first potential listing of the group company since TCS in 2004. Tata Motors will divest part stake in Tata Technologies through an IPO. The Tata Motors stock perks up in trade. The GST Council's Fitment Committee will clarify on several tax-related issues in its upcoming meeting. From SUVs to fruit juices, the rate panel will clarify on the conditions for the GST level. Fertilizer Secretary Arun Singhal tells CNBC-TV18 the FY23 subsidy bill is high, but adds that farmers are a priority. Also highlights the government will manufacture 17 crore bottles of nano urea, a fertilizer patented by Farmer Fertilizer Cooperative next fiscal. Sam Bankman-Fried, the former CEO of the bankrupt crypto exchange FTX, arrested in the Bahamas after a request by the US market regulator SEC charges Fried with defrauding investors for over $1.8 billion. A ray of hope in the fight against cancer. Moderna and Merck prepare to launch the first ever phase 3 trial of a messenger RNA vaccine. Claim the vaccine boosted chances of survival against an aggressive type of skin cancer in a smaller study. The top story tonight, the Indian Army repelled an attempt by Chinese troops to transgress into the Tawang region in Arunachal Pradesh that took place on the 9th of December. Now, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh made this statement to both houses of Parliament. Reports suggest nearly 300 Chinese soldiers were part of the incursion attempt, and the Indian Army managed to repel the attack, but no number has officially been confirmed by either the government or the Indian Army. The Defence Minister said that there was a scuffle that led to injuries for a few Army personnel on both sides. He also added that there were no fatalities or serious injuries on the Indian side. China's foreign ministry, meanwhile, has not directly acknowledged the incident, but a spokesperson has said the situation at the India-China border is stable overall. Both sides maintained unobstructed dialogue through diplomatic and military channels, is what the Chinese spokesperson said. Here's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh speaking in Parliament and reactions to what has been the first clash at the line of actual control since 20 Indian soldiers died in Ladakh's Galwan Valley in 2020.
9 दिसंबर 2022 को पीएलए ट्रुप्स ने तवांग सेक्टर के यांगसे एरिया में लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल पर अतिक्रमण कर स्टेटस को एक तरफा बदलने का प्रयास किया। इस फेस ऑफ में हाथापाई भी हुई है। भारतीय सेना ने बहादुरी से पीएलए को हमारी टेरिटरी में अतिक्रमण करने से रोका और उन्हें उनकी पोस्ट पर वापस जाने के लिए मजबूर कर दिया। अध्यक्ष महोदय,
now, while Raksha Mantri's statement did not really give specifics about how many Indian soldiers have suffered injuries, the Indian Army sources gave the numbers at 6 last evening. Today, the government functionaries were saying that at least 9 Indian soldiers could have been admitted at a Guwahati hospital. Raksha Mantri said that none of them are critical. Thankfully, there's been no loss of life. What we have learned is that most soldiers have suffered fractures in their limbs. They have suffered injuries which are being attended to. Raksha Mantri also said that there have been injuries reported to the Chinese side as well, but did not give any number as to how many Chinese soldiers entered. The approximate number that was being given by local MPs, by government sources, is that about 300 PLA soldiers entered, and there was a clash between the two sides. What sources also indicate is that perhaps the People's Liberation Army, the Chinese army there, thought that this would only be a patrolling party. They did not think that the Indian side would want to seize control of that post, even in this harsh weather when the entire area is snowbound, and the Chinese side was in for a surprise.
जब तक भारतीय जनता पार्टी की मोदी सरकार चल रही है, 1 इंच जमीन पर भी कोई कब्जा नहीं कर सकता। कल अपने सेना के जवानों ने जो 8 की देर रात को और 9 की सुबह को जो वीरता दिखाई है, मैं इसकी बुरी प्रशंसा करता हूं।
So Vaisi later came out and spoke to the media and said that, why are you so scared if China is repeatedly transgressing into our territory, taking away our land in eastern Ladakh or in Tawang? Say China Murdabad. That's what Asaduddin Owaisi said, that, from the house, give a message to China, take the parliamentarians to Depsang, take them to Ladakh, take them to Tawang, give that message that India is united, it is standing with our soldiers. He alleged, and this is what the other opposition leaders also alleged, that the political leadership of the country as far as China is concerned is weak, and the Indian army is doing its job, but politically more needs to be done.
To vacate our territory and has been deliberately taking shelter beyond the statement of our Prime Minister dated 20th June 2020, saying that no one has entered into our territory.
The consistent and the very confirmed position of the CPI is that this border disputes should be resolved. For that resolution, no confrontation in the military way is not the way.
Reactions coming into the Defence Minister's statement in Parliament. Now, India and China, both members of the G20 group of nations. India recently assumed presidency of the G20, and India's G20 Sherpa, Amitabh Kant, when asked if the border tensions with China and the Russia-Ukraine war will be discussed at the congregation, Kant said G20 is a forum focused on economic issues, and they will discuss the impact of the war on food, fuel and other essentials. Take a look.
So this is a multilateral forum designed for economic growth, financial progress. The bilateral issues are discussed between two countries. This is a multilateral forum. Right. This is also not a forum which discusses issues of war. Those are issues to be discussed at the UN Security Council. The war may have other side effects like food, fuel, fertilizer. Those may come in for discussion, but not the issue of war per se.
And we will discuss the latest LAC clash in detail and ask experts what they make of the Chinese transgression. We'll be joined by the former Chief of the Army Staff, General VP Malik, political affairs commentator Inar Tanjan, Shrikant Kondapalli, Dean at the School of International Studies and Professor of China Studies at JNU. On to the day's market action. A good day for the bulls. We've seen the markets end in the green. The Nifty and the Sensex gaining over 0.5%, led by Reliance and IT stocks. The Nifty Bank rose 0.5%, ending at a record close. But the rupee depreciated 30 paise from yesterday's close, ending at a 6-week closing low. The rupee ending at 82.81 against the greenback. Investors remain in risk-off mode ahead of the US Fed's decision on interest rates. The 2-day FOMC meeting starts today. Now, as complaints about overcrowding and congestion at airports increase, the Aviation Ministry has asked airlines to deploy sufficient staff at check-in and baggage drop counters to ensure decongestion. Airlines have also been asked to place real-time data on their social media feeds on wait times at respective entry gates. Meanwhile, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Transport, Tourism and Culture has summoned the CEO of the International Airport at Delhi and others to explain the congestion at airports. The GST Council's Fitment Committee will clarify on several tax-related issues in its upcoming meeting. From SUVs to fruit juices, the rate panel will clarify on the conditions for the levy of the GST. Fertilizer Secretary Arun Singhal telling CNBC-TV18 that the FY23 subsidy bill is high, but that the worst may be behind us, also adding that farmers are a priority, said that the government will manufacture 17 crore bottles of nano-urea, a fertilizer patented by Farmers Fertilizer Cooperative, next fiscal.
Because of geopolitical considerations in the world and various factors, the subsidy amount has gone up, and it's always a challenge for the government to find funds. But it's a question of priorities. You know, if farmers occupy the highest priority for the government, then the government will ensure that funds are made available. And that has been happening so far. Even though prices have gone up internationally, the government has chosen to increase the subsidy burden and not to burden farmers.
In corporate news, Tata Sons has announced the first potential listing of a group company since TCS in 2004. Tata Motors has announced a potential disinvestment of some stake in Tata Technologies via an IPO. Sonia is here with the details on what this means for Tata Motors. Sonia.
Well, as you rightly pointed out, Tata Motors, the board has approved divestment of Tata Technologies through the IPO route. Now, Tata Motors holds about 72.4% stake in Tata Technologies, and Tata Technologies, as we know, is the product engineering and digital services firm. It was started way back in 1989 as a subsidiary of Tata Motors, and the reason for this IPO is perhaps due to increasing demand that they're seeing both in the electric vehicle as well as in the aviation space. Now, as per the annual report of Tata Motors, the investment in Tata Technologies stood at 224 odd crores. And this IPO is also important because it's the first IPO from the Tata Group after 18 long years. Remember, the last IPO from the Tata Group was way back in 2004, which was TCS. Now, analysts say that this is sentiment positive for Tata Motors. They value Tata Technology at 20 times PE on FY21 earnings, and by applying a 20% holding company discount, the fair value works out to around 38 rupees a share post the holdco discount of 20%. MK says that this can lead to an upside of 31 rupees per share to the fair value.
Sonia, many thanks. And this is the big data number that we've all been waiting for from the U.S. Inflation in the U.S. cooling, sparking cheer among investors. Consumer price index in November slowing to 7.1%. This has been better than the Wall Street estimate of 7.3%. As I mentioned, the U.S. Fed meeting will wrap up tomorrow, and what impact this inflation reading will have remains to be seen. This is going to be something that the markets will watch closely. What is the Fed chief going to say by way of commentary? Remember, we saw an inflation print below 6% here in India. We've seen a lower than expected inflation print in the US, and this is certainly going to give investors some hope that perhaps the rate hike cycle could be slowing down. Now, lenders of EdTech startup Byju have asked the company to repay part of the $1.2 billion loan immediately. A Bloomberg report suggests lenders have accused the company of violating terms, including the September deadline for filing its results for FY22. The Delhi government has announced plans to provide 450 types of medical tests free of cost from the 1st of January. Currently, the number of medical tests provided free of cost is 212. This facility will be available at city hospitals and mohalla clinics. The big newsmaker this evening, India's real estate market is the #1 priority for the Trump organization globally. That's the word in from Donald Trump Jr. He's in India to promote a partnership with the Indian real estate company Tribeca. Speaking with Yash Jain, Trump Jr. said strong demand makes the Indian realty market attractive. He also expressed confidence on his father's second bid for the White House.
Now, globally, it'd be, #1. I mean, I think there's, it's the largest market outside of the U.S., for us already. I think given, sort of the demand that we're seeing, the opportunities that have been presented, and, we may see a lot of opportunities that we say no to because it doesn't fit our brand. We got to stay true to that. But, I think it continues to be, and I think when you have someone as sort of motivated and entrepreneurial as Kal Pesh, I may not have a choice. It may become #1, even including the U.S. I'm confident in the message. I'm confident in what he's able to deliver. I think we have to get through a lot of hurdles through the way our election cycles work. And, right now I think it's probably much less about a candidate than it is about a ballot harvesting operation. And I think we have to learn how to focus on that. The Republican side is always a very late adapter to that. The Democrats get much more creative, in how they do that, whether that, weaponizing sort of COVID to change things or to do that. Because, when I look at the issues, when I look at the economy, I don't think we're losing on issues.
Okay.
I don't, not even a little bit. But I think we're losing in the way that we handle those things and have tried to do that and refuse to adapt. So I think we have to do that, and I think that's critical.
Well, that's Donald Trump Jr. confident on his father's prospects, running for president again, and on India. Time for us to head into a break, but up next, a ray of hope in the fight against cancer. Moderna and Merck prepare to launch the first ever phase 3 trial of a messenger RNA vaccine. That and more when we return.
Welcome back. Now, just over a month after UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak took oath, India and Britain have resumed their trade talks, hoping to seal a free trade agreement. Now, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal and UK Trade Secretary Kemi Badenoch met face-to-face for the first time yesterday in what was the 6th round of trade talks. Now, Parikshit Luthra spoke to UK Trade Secretary Kemi Badenoch, who refused to set any deadline and said that the focus will be on sealing a quality deal.
So I have asked that we stop talking about deadlines and we talk about the quality of the deal and not just the speed. So it's about the deal, not the day. One of the things that happened previously was that people were talking about a deal by Diwali when we were really talking about concluding the majority of talks. What Minister Goyal and I have done is instruct the negotiators to work at pace. We had a very constructive discussion this afternoon where we both spoke at the same time. Both negotiating teams heard what we had to say and know that this is something that we would like to conclude as soon as possible. But it has to be the right deal for both countries.
Okay. But would you be looking at any sort of timeline, any hope that the UK has to complete it by March next year or middle of next year? Any kind of broad estimate that you can give us?
So I'm not giving an estimate. It would be fantastic if we can conclude by then. But what I want is to make sure that the negotiators are not under pressure to rush a deal. I want them to do a good deal. The UK and India are both negotiating FTAs with many countries, and all those countries are going to be looking at the standard that is set in this FTA. So a quality deal that is ambitious and balanced is key. We obviously know that this is not something that we can spend forever working on. There will be many things that will take place, such as elections. We've already seen how a change of government can, or an election as we had in Gujarat, for instance, can slow things down. So we don't want those sorts of things to get in the way. So what I want you to take away is that we've asked the negotiators to move at pace, to work quickly, and to not spend time on negotiating things which we know both sides are unlikely to move on. We need to find where there is a good landing zone that both sides agree is mutually beneficial for India as well as the UK.
Meanwhile, Uber Senior VP and Chief Legal Officer Tony West claims that they are the largest employer in India after the Indian Army and Indian Railways and have unlocked 44,600 crore rupees of economic potential. In an exclusive conversation with CNBC-TV18, West added that they are open to providing social security benefits to drivers in India, but cautioned that it should not be hard-coded into the law.
The reality is Uber has unlocked about 445 billion Indian rupees in economic value into this country by the operation of the platform. We can continue to create that type of economic value for anyone who comes to the platform for an opportunity to work. How we continue to do that is making sure that, again, that we're allowed to innovate.
In international news, Sam Bankman-Fried, the former CEO of bankrupt crypto exchange FTX, was arrested in Bahamas after a request by the United States. Now, he faces multiple charges, including conspiracy to commit securities fraud and money laundering. Now, market regulator SEC charges Fried with defrauding investors for over $1.8 billion. Andrew Ross-Sorking is joining us with more.
The SEC filing charges against Sam Bankman-Fried. This is a case that they've been bringing, alleging effectively that he misled investors, not investors in FTX, the exchange per se, meaning customers of the exchange, but this is a case being brought effectively to protect those that invested, the venture capitalists and others that put money into this company. That may very well be the limit of U.S. regulators, or at least the SEC's ability to bring a case in this regard. We are expected to hear from the Department of Justice with their criminal case later today. The SEC saying that unbeknownst to those investors, Sam Bankman-Fried was orchestrating a massive years-long fraud, diverting billions of dollars of the trading platform's customer funds for his own personal benefit and to help grow his crypto empire. Within the context of the lawsuit, they talk about effectively an account called Fiat at FTX, where lots of money appeared to be coming into FTX that they realized should have been brought to one side from Alameda, in that it wasn't, and that at some point actually it appears that they're alleging that he actually not only knew about it, but knew that there was $8 billion in said account, and all of a sudden, because of the way they had moved it into this account, the account was going to start charging them interest. So he had them move it to a different account so that the interest wouldn't be charged.
Well, here's a ray of hope in the fight against cancer. Moderna and Merck prepare to launch first ever phase 3 trial of messenger RNA vaccine. The Moderna CEO claimed the vaccine boosted chances of survival against an aggressive type of skin cancer in a smaller study.
It's 150 patients. It was designed to be statistically powered. So we always wanted to know, is it working or not? We didn't want a half result. And as you know, in oncology, because it's so hard as a disease, it was critical. So that's why the p-value at 0.0266 really means that this data is for real. We did 2 patients out of 3 got Moderna and PCV. 1 got Keytruda alone. We did less on the control arm because there's, of course, a lot of data out there on Keytruda through its own clinical studies. And so that's how Merck and us designed the study. So it's real.
Now, India's first private missile integrator facility, Kalyani Rafale Advanced Defense Systems, has rolled out the 100th midsection of its medium-range surface-to-air missile kit for delivery to the armed forces. Now, CNBC-TV18's Abhimanyu Sharma and Arvind Sukumar report that this is a big milestone for India's aspirations of designing and building indigenous missiles of different types.
This is a milestone moment for Kalyani Rafale Advanced Defense Systems. It has handed over the 100th midsection of a medium-range surface-to-air missile to the Indian Armed Forces. This milestone comes just 20 months after the first midsection was manufactured at this facility. Kalyani Strategic Systems, which operates this facility in a joint venture with Israel-based Rafale Advanced Defense Systems, says this is a big step in adding indigenous weapon systems to India's arsenal.
We have an order for about 1,000 midsections, valuing at about $100 million. Time will come when we will be able to design and build our own indigenous missiles of many different types. We already have more than 6 verticals in defense. These missiles is one of them here in Hyderabad. In Pune, we make artillery guns, we make ammunition, we make small arms, and we make armored vehicles. So these are some of the products that we currently actually produce. And many of these have been developed by us or developed through DRDO's help. So they are all fully indigenous, 100% Indian, and the IP is owned here in India by us.
The midsection will form part of the Barak-8 missile, a long-range and medium-range surface-to-air missile system designed for both land-based and maritime installations. This is not the Israeli firm's first rodeo in India, and the company expects more orders as it adds to its Make in India capabilities.
We have been working in India for more than 25 years. Our system, our combat-proven, are in use with all the Indian Armed Forces. The next step is not only to sell our product, but also to produce them in India, to produce our system in India, part of the vision of Make in India.
However, KRAS says India must tweak its procurement processes to get to the next level in indigenous defense production.
A 15-year contract given to the company. Because of that, they are able to do more research, they are able to produce better versions.
The Barak-8 missile system will be seen alongside the supersonic surface-to-surface BrahMos missile system on the guided missile stealth destroyer INS Murmugao, which is expected to be commissioned around the 18th of December.
While the government expects the Indian defense sector to be around $25 billion by 2025-26, with around $5 billion of exports, the defense sector wants contracts of over 10 years to push for more innovation and come up with better technologies. In Hyderabad, with video journalist H.K. Patra, this is Abhimanyu Sharma for CNBC-TV18.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates continue right here on CNBC-TV18.
Co-powered by Century Ply, आग से बचाए.